Hey,
Hey everybody.
good
Thanks for
evening.
thanks, thanks for joining the webinar tonight. And tonight we're going to be covering 3 tricky ways in which you may be being held back by positive thinking. We're going to elaborate on each of these ways as we move through as well. It's not something you'd expect, really, but
No.
yeah, it's interesting, and we'll look forward to talking about it tonight.
Absolutely. And well done for getting on. It's Thursday night before Easter, so, we understand people are going camping and all sorts of crazy things. So if you're here, welcome. Don't forget you can use the chat box if you need to, and we'll try and answer any questions probably towards the end so we don't get distracted, because we've got a fair bit to get through tonight. And if you missed the live and you got the recording, then ask questions in the posts on the Facebook group, and then we'll be able to get back to you later on. So, all right, so number one. Biggest problem with positive thinking is it actually takes a lot of energy to keep yourself up all the time. So it's actually against our natural state to be up all the time. And so that's why we have to dig deep, and we have to put the big smile on the face, or we have to fake it till we make it. And so a lot of energy is being used up just to keep us up all the time. It's basically hard work, because we're denying half of our natural selves, and we're made up of both. We have emotions on both sides of the spectrum as far as we label them as humans, and that means that we have to be able to feel and express both of them without having to feel like we're doing something wrong, or we're a bad person or a toxic person or anything like that. So we get addicted, don't we, to being on the upside.
Yeah, and I think addicted to seeing one side of what is always going to be a dualistic or two-sided experience. There is no one-sided experience, but we kind of crave things that we feel we want, and we run away from things that we are trying to avoid. And by doing that, we're only really seeing one side at any given time. Whereas if we can start to appreciate the dualistic nature of everything, we'll show you as we move through this how that will have a positive effect on what everything you do, what you think. And I just kick the table. So,
hey, there's a positive to that.
Has to be.
And as one of my mentors said, you can't get rich collecting one-sided coins. So we've got to have two sides to everything. And those of you who do yoga with us, you may have heard at times when we've spoken about the clinging side of things and the aversion. So either trying to cling to something that you really want or averting away from it. Those are 2 of the 4 major causes of suffering according to yogic philosophy. So the others are ego and stories, which sort of blend into those 2 anyway. So we end up with this whole lot of beliefs around the way things should be, or the way things shouldn't be, or that person should be or shouldn't be. And it makes it really hard, because then we find ourselves in the land of controlling others. We're not, whoa, where are we? Oh, there we go. So we find ourselves in the land of trying to control others. And that makes things really difficult, because obviously they're another individual. They have their own soul. They have their own will. They have their own agenda in this life. So it's not something that you can even do. So what we do in order to get really super positive, we're trying to keep that energy up and be up. What are sorts of things do you see that people do mostly for?
Oh, well, I think, things like positive affirmations would be one of them. So whether it's in the morning or whatever, or throughout the day, even just, continuously repeating over and over, I feel amazing, I feel powerful, I feel strong. And that's it, and only wanting to see that side of things. So kind of pushing, or definitely pushing away anything that doesn't sort of fit into that affirmation. That's only one example of many different affirmations, but constantly only ever looking at or reading positive memes. Everything's good. It's all
Facebook's full of them, aren't they?
Full of them. Everything's full of them. But this it's all good sort of culture. When it's not all good, there's all good, and there's equal amounts of what we call it good and bad. That's another issue we're going to cover as well. But there's other things like distracting ourselves away from what's going on. So that might be drinking alcohol, it might be sex, drugs, rock and roll.
TV's the biggest drug, easy.
TV, exactly. Anything that we can kind of switch off, that takes the brain, numbs it out, where you don't have to think, you don't have to be present, you don't have to kind of experience what's really going on.
Yeah.
So these are probably
Well,
a
how
few
about
of
the
the ways.
really ironic one where people get together and they start to collude with each other and say, oh, she's so judgmental, I don't know why we even hang around with her. It's so funny. Did you not just hear what you said?
Yeah.
But it's only there to resolve tension. It's just to get rid of that feeling of that person being judgmental and being in your life, and it not really solving anything in particular. So it's just, we're always trying to look at that one side, aren't we? And trying to shift those beliefs. That should be that way.
Yeah.
Or it shouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So we also miss out on lots of things when we're always in the up. So not only is it costing us energy, but also, of course, we're disallowing those parts of us, particularly some really valuable emotions. So just because we label something as a bad emotion doesn't mean we're not meant to experience it. If it did mean that, well, then it would mean that we would be born with a handbook and we could just, sit around in the deck chair all day on the beach. But even that's not going to be fulfilling, because imagine if everything was perfect, how boring your life would be. We actually need variety in life. And the other thing is we don't get the lessons, because when we get a challenge or something negative, usually we become a bit more introspective and a bit more curious about what's got behind it and how we've got to this state. And so if we're not forced to look inside or even at what's happened, we don't learn those major lessons that help us to expand as beings on this planet. So it's really important that we have those. So you don't want to miss out on that. So that's part one. You're always up, you're costing yourself some energy, you're costing yourself some valuable experiences as a human. And so that moves us a bit more into the duality of life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And duality, meaning that there's that table again, meaning that for every up, there's an equal and opposite down, or light, dark. You can't have one without the other. So if you're wanting to have those positive experiences, you just simply can't have that without the equal and opposite negative experiences. And I think sometimes we kind of confuse things a little bit, and it's to our detriment sometimes, is that where we have our positive and our negatives, really that's more of an energetic thing. It's more like a battery charge, a positive and negative, the plus and minus at two ends of the battery. And that's about where it starts and finishes.
Yeah, you wouldn't look at a battery and go, oh, that's the really bad end.
That's right. And that's the good end. But that's what we tend to do with experiences in life. Ones that we believe make us feel good are the positive, and the others are the negative. And the positive's good and the negative's bad. Well, we could really start to shake things up in a great way by starting to lose that association with good and bad in relation to positive.
You actually
negative.
have a little story about that you printed off today.
I do.
To share with us.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good story. You probably heard it before, but it doesn't hurt to hear it again. So over to you, Craig.
Here we go. So once upon a time, there was a farmer in the central region of China. He didn't have a lot of money, and instead of a tractor, he used an old horse to plough his field. So one afternoon, while working in the field, the horse dropped dead. Everybody in the village said, "Oh, what a horrible thing to happen." And the farmer said simply, "We'll see." And he was so at peace and so calm that everyone in the village got together and, admiring his attitude, gave him a new horse as a gift. Everyone...
Sorry, I'll stop doing actions.
Everyone's reaction now was, "What a lucky man." And the farmer said, "We'll see." A couple of days later, the new horse jumped the fence and ran away, and everyone in the village shook their heads and said, "What a poor fellow." And the farmer smiled and said, "We'll see." And eventually the horse found its way home, and everyone again said, "What a fortunate man." And the farmer said, "Yep, we'll see." So later on in the year, the farmer's young boy went out riding on the horse and fell off and broke his leg. And everyone in the village said, "What a shame for the poor boy." And the farmer said, "You guessed it, we'll see." 2 days later, the army came to the village to draft the new recruits. And when they saw that the farmer's son had a broken leg, they decided not to recruit him. And everybody said, "What a fortunate young man." And the farmer smiled again and said, "We'll see." So the moral of the story is that there's no use in overreacting to the events and circumstances of our everyday lives. Many times what looks like a setback may actually be a gift in disguise. And then they go on to say that when our hearts are in the right place, all of the events and circumstances are in fact gifts that we can learn valuable lessons from.
So they agree with me. That's great.
Perfect.
Valuable lessons.
Very
Yay,
positive.
awesome. So life is dualistic, and we rarely acknowledge both sides, and that's partly because in our thinking, we've sort of been taught to really only label one or the other. So what we do is we see a situation, or we're in a situation, or something happens, or a thought arises, and we label and judge it as something. And from that, we decide how we're going to feel about it. And of course, being humans, we decide to categorize our feelings, and it has to either fit into the good bucket or the bad bucket. So we sort of give it that type of feeling. Now, if we prejudge something or someone as negative, and our identity is 100% I'm an up person, I'm a positive person, then we're going to remove ourselves from that situation, or we're going to not associate with particular people or that sort of thing. And in that way, we're actually cutting ourselves out of some really amazing experiences in life. And then we've got the other side of the coin, whereas if we prejudge something or a situation as positive, and of course we're the 100% positive person, then we have an expectation around that as well. And then we're often let down, which is the balancing negative, because we've put this event on a pedestal, if you like, and then all of a sudden we get there and it's like, oh, yeah, not so great. So if we're constantly living in that up world, the negative's coming. So a little example, we do a fair bit of yoga, and some of you watching tonight are yogis as well. And so we understand that it's really not a great thing to come into the room with expectation. We've all done it, so don't beat yourself up for it. But when you come into the room and, you know, the last class, you really kicked ass. You did fantastically well, really pleased with your progress and how the postures were going. And you go, right, this time I'm going to nail it. I'm going to be able to go even deeper into this one. And then you get into class and all of a sudden you're falling out of things and you can't even grab your foot, and it's just completely different to what you did last time. And then of course you feel bummed out because you came in with expectation, and then your reality was something that was not quite up to that. So the gap is where all that displeasure comes in. So we basically want to understand that when we have too much up, there's going to be down anyway. Now, maybe you did nail the yoga class and it was fantastic and everything that you expected, but likely you'll probably bump into something as you're backing your car out in the car park or something like that. And it's just because there has got to be a balancing. Your subconscious is always trying to bring you back to balance. It doesn't want you to be too high all the time because it knows that's not beneficial to you. And it doesn't even want you to be too low all the time. It wants you to find the happy medium where there's a nice, rather than wild pendulum swings, it's actually just a pendulum swing backwards and forwards. And some people get a bit concerned about that because they think, well, what's the point of life? Should I just go and meditate in a cave? But it's not about that either. We're expansive creatures as human beings. So we want to make sure that we're covering the bases and able to move forward and able to expand, because sitting in the cave is not the answer, and neither is just hustling your ass off to try and get the best of the best without any consideration of your centeredness in your heart. So what we tend to do when we look at our duality is we tend to look where we can bring balance back in, particularly if we're feeling super excited. Like right now, we're feeling super excited about the retreat. But that retreat doesn't come without some drawbacks, some pain. There's some work to be done. And so that's good because it's already built in. But perhaps there's something else that's coming up in your life where you're going, I'm really excited about this. And you keep your focus just on that excited thing. And what does the universe do in return usually?
It brings you something to balance that out a little bit, and again, that something's not it's the opposite energy, but it's designed to bring you back to that midpoint and take that wild swing of emotion.
Absolutely, it's almost magical, and it could be something like a disease or a death in the family, or a massive debt, or a bill you weren't expecting, maybe even just added relationship stress, or you just start niggling at people for no apparent reason, but your subconscious knows what it's doing. So what's really important when you're finding yourself a bit too up, because it will happen at times, is you need to find how you can choose your own pain so that then you can balance yourself out. Yeah. And what's one of the most effective tools for doing that?
Well, you can instantly think to yourself, where in my life can I be more organized and more disciplined? Yep. And that question immediately brings you closer to the center. And as you explore it, you'll come up with stuff straight away. And when you start to take action on that, it's a beautiful, effective way of bringing you from that high swing, even the low swing would still bring you back there. And so you become immediately proactive and moving still in that direction of what you're creating, but you're not hampered by being too sort of far out away from the midpoint. So it's a powerful way
absolutely.
to go.
So that question is absolutely, one of the game changers for me was, how can I be more focused, more disciplined, more organized right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or going to the gym, like, I'm really excited, let's go do a hard workout. I know it sounds terrible, but it's just one of those things. If you're creating your own pain, you're not necessarily going to be attracting other stuff that you weren't expecting, because everyone loves surprises, but they only like the surprises that make them feel good. They don't like the surprises that make them feel shit. They call those ones problems. So let's give ourselves our own problems so that they're quality problems rather than things that are really going to distract us from what we would really love in life. So the third tricky way that positive thinking can hold you back is that you lose valuable support and sense of community. Okay. So again, this isn't part of your true nature to be up all the time. Nobody on this planet has ever been designed to be up. Now, yes, there are more optimistic people than, and there are more pessimistic people. That's fine. But if you're living your true nature, you cannot be optimistic 100% of the time.
That's right. And I think when you're saying you lose resources and people out of your scene, it's because there's various reasons for it. If people perceive, if you're putting up a front and maybe it's not an authentic front, that, hey, I've got it all covered, I know everything, I'm good. Some people put you on a pedestal, and that's not a great place to be. I guess we can talk about that at another time.
Yeah, definitely.
But other people will kind of shy away from you because they feel intimidated and they don't feel like they should be in your company because you're way above or beyond them or something like this. So they'll move away.
Yep.
Also, you separate yourself, and we're a very communal being by nature, but what you do is you separate yourself out from everybody else, and that means that you also cut off communications from those people and their support as well in going for what you're going for in life. So you end up kind of on your lonesome doing it solo. And
that's okay. I'm okay. Everything's fine.
And it's about being more authentic than that, and actually being who you truly are. And when you need support and help, putting your hand up and saying,
be vulnerable.
Exactly.
And being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak. It just means actually being strong enough to say, hey, I need a hand, and reaching out to your community from that point of view. So, but if you've always got to play the role of being the up person who always lifts everybody else up and all that sort of thing, you're the one that probably most likely needs the help from others, just to feel the support, feel the nurturing, and you deserve to receive that as much as you give it out to others. And people want to be able to give it to you. They actually want to have that gift of being able to support you in who you are and what you want in life and through the difficult times that come up. So it's really important that you're open for that two-way communication in terms of giving and receiving. And in fact, in part of the journaling that we do, it's about that too. So yeah, really, really, really important. So, and we all know that at least one up person in your life, or at least on your social media feed, where they've got, it's just all FOMO based. It's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, it's amazing, it's brilliant, my life is wonderful. But you wouldn't have to spend too long, maybe a day, following them around, and you'd see that there are times when they need support. You can't have all areas of your life covered at all times, and you can't be up all the time. You're a human. Everything's in balance. So we're traveling and looking like you've got lots of adventure going on Facebook may be one thing. Maybe the relationship's not going so well, or somewhere else in the family there's been a breakdown or something like that. There's got to be some balance in there somewhere. So if we can all band together and share and support, we actually get further with our expansion as a whole, as a community, rather than going, oh, I'm not good enough for that person, I don't want to let them know about my fears and shortfalls and all that sort of thing. So, and vice versa. Let's just be more open. Let's allow that facade of being up all the time to drop. Let's allow ourselves to be in touch with our emotions and teach our kids how to do it too. Because if our kids can't be okay with feeling down every now and again, and know that they can come to you and talk to you about the fact that they're feeling a little bit down, then where else are they going to go? You're their parent, you're their confidant. They might go to a friend, but You're the one with all the wisdom. You're the one that wants to be able to direct them and give them your wisdom at this point in time, I would think anyway, as a parent. So, yeah, so just to finish up.
So yeah, just being, be aware, start to just observe a little bit more maybe, and sort of ask yourself, where am I craving, or where am I trying to avoid stuff, because craving and aversion, as they say, it's the root of all suffering, sort of thing. So, and that when you start to identify things that you're attached to, or you feel you really need for your happiness, or to feel whole and complete, these can be real key things to identify, so that you can start to ask yourself some questions around maybe why that is, and realize that that's not true.
Yeah.
That you are whole and complete as you are. It's just about remembering that, and we'll go into that in greater depth, obviously, in the retreat. And the other thing is to learn to love what is, rather than craving something else, or craving an out of balance kind of all up situation. Starting to really come more to that midpoint and realize that, it's going to fluctuate from time to time, but I'm sort of going to hang with the tension of that, and as we move through, everything changes. So
absolutely, yeah.
Nothing stays like that for too long. So
yeah, absolutely. So appreciate the balance in everything. There's an upside, there's a downside. We've got to recognize it for what it is. It won't be apparent straight away, because you can only see one side of it in any given moment. Be authentic, choose your own pain, and stay connected. I think that's probably one of the most important things. So we'll be covering, of course, this and more in our retreat in May. And so if you want to know more about that, check out the links. We'll put them in the feed again, just in case they've disappeared. And look for the webinar again probably next week.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have something on the go then. So if you've got any special requests, let us know as well. We think we know what we're going to do.
Yeah, we've got a bit of an idea, so we'll start to get back to you on that in the coming days anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Have a fantastic Easter, and we will catch you on the other side. See you later.
See you guys.